Okay, welcome to video 5. This is our last video for Unit 7, so that means that you have a test coming up in the near future. We are going to go ahead and get Germany reunified today, so let's go ahead and jump in and get that knocked out, wrap up this unit. Okay, so the map that you see here is what we recognize as Germany. However, it didn't always look this way. So the map that you are going to see in a second, in the map on your notes, please label and circle the areas as I cover them. If you want to color code them, you are welcome to, but I want to make sure you have 3 specific areas labeled correctly. The first area is the yellow area. This is the Austrian Empire, so please make sure you have it circled, color coded. You definitely need to have it labeled. The second area is Prussia, and Prussia is broken into 2 parts and is represented by the blue on my map. Again, you can color yours in if you wish, but at the very least, you need to have them labeled. The last area is the gray one, and that is the German states. Now, you should know these areas already, but if perhaps you've forgotten them since we did the nationalism map a while back, here's a good reminder for you. Okay, now I also want you to draw in the red line that's on my map. That shows the border of the Confederation of German States. So Prussia is going to take the lead in German unification, but why? Well, one of the main reasons why is that Prussia had mainly a German population. So nationalism, remember what that means, pride in one's country, and feeling a commitment to the people that you share a culture with. Nationalism was great for the country. Nationalism had the opposite effect in other places like Austria-Hungary, though. There were 2 different ethnic groups, and it ultimately tore the empire apart. Another reason why Prussia was at an advantage to unify Germany is that the Prussian army was the most powerful in Central Europe. And the final reason is that in 1848, rioters in Berlin had forced a constitutional convention to write a liberal constitution. So this made it easier for the people to unite as well. Now, this guy right here is the man with the plan, okay? This is Otto von Bismarck. Now let me give you a little bit of background info here. So in 1861, Wilhelm I took over the throne after Friedrich Wilhelm. The parliament was very liberal and had refused to give Wilhelm I money to build up the army. Well, Wilhelm I was determined to build up the army. So he saw the parliament's refusal to give him what he wanted as a challenge to his authority, a big-time challenge to his authority. Now, there was a group of wealthy landowners who were strongly conservative, and they were called Junkers, okay? So in 1862, he chose a Junker by the name of Otto von Bismarck to be his prime minister. Now, Bismarck became a master at realpolitik, which is a German term that means the politics of reality. It describes tough politics with no room for idealism. I guess one way of saying it would be, it is what it is, okay? So a very realistic view of things. Ethics, morals, feelings, not important. None of that was important to Bismarck, okay? So here is one of Bismarck's quotes. He said, "It is not by means of speeches and majority resolutions that the great issues of the day will be decided." That was the great mistake of 1848 and 1849. But by blood and iron. So he's referencing all of the unsuccessful uprisings that occurred across Europe during that time and calling out all the failures. His greatest rival was Austria. But in order for Prussia to expand and become an empire, he had to form an alliance with Austria. So you've heard the saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. This is a great example of that. All right, so in 1864, Bismarck starts making moves to creating and expanding a Prussian empire. His goal was to increase nationalism and gain territory. Now, Prussia and Austria joined forces to invade Denmark. At the end of the war, it was agreed that Prussia would have control of Schleswig and that Austria would control Holstein. Does anyone see a problem here? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, so Prussia and Austria end up going to war, but nobody saw that coming, right? So Bismarck stirred the pot and created tensions along the border of Schleswig and Holstein, which ultimately provoked Austria into declaring war on Prussia in 1866. This was called the 7 Weeks' War. So remember that the Prussian army was superior in Eastern Europe at this point. It was basically a war to prove who was stronger. Of course, Prussia won. They beat Austria so bad that it was incredibly embarrassing for them. The deal was that if Germany was united, Prussia would dominate and not Austria. So with that agreement in place, Prussia had control over northern Germany. They also lost control of Venetia, which was given to Italy, and they had to deal with Germany annexing more of their land to become German territory. So now, because they have annexed all of this area through here, Hanover, so this area here of Hanover, all of this area here and further south, West and East Prussia are finally united geographically, okay? So by 1867, there were very few German states that were not actually under Prussian control. Most of these states were in the southern region of Germany. Now, Prussia was predominantly Protestant, but these southern German states were predominantly Catholic. And of course, many of them resisted being under Protestant control. Bismarck knew, though, that he could gain the support of these Germans if there was a threat coming from outside of Germany. So he did what he does best. Bismarck made it seem as though the French ambassador had insulted the Prussian king. He tricked Napoleon III into starting the war to make southern Germany scared and therefore ask Prussia for help. So the war was between France and Prussia. Napoleon III was the leader of France, and Bismarck, of course, was the leader of Prussia. Well, Prussia wins the war, and those southern Germans who had been resistant to Prussian control, they now accept Bismarck's leadership, and they also become more nationalistic as a result. So speaking of results, now what? On January 18, 1871, King Wilhelm I of Prussia was crowned Kaiser, or Emperor of Germany. Napoleon III ended up abdicating the throne. That means that he resigned or stepped down from the throne. France, as a country, also had consequences. France had to pay reparations for the war damages that had been done. France also lost territory. Specifically, and I want you to write this down because you'll hear a lot about this in the coming units, the area they specifically lost is called Alsace and Lorraine. It's the area circled in red here on this map. Now, Germany is united. Prussia got to get credit for unifying Germany, especially Otto von Bismarck. Berlin became the capital city, and although Kaiser Wilhelm I is the leader of the country, the one who's really in control and calling all the shots is Otto von Bismarck. Austria no longer had an alliance with Germany and was essentially left out. Wilhelm I died in 1888 at the age of 90. His son, Frederick III, was then named emperor, but Frederick III would only rule for 99 days. Following a long battle with throat cancer, Emperor Frederick III died on June 15th, 1888. Wilhelm II succeeded his father, becoming Kaiser of Germany at the very young age of 29. So when Wilhelm II comes to power, he does two major things. The military of Germany is increased, and the industry of Germany is increased as well. So these two things allowed Germany to become not only nationalistic, but militaristic as well. And those are going to be the things that lead us into World War I eventually. So before we close, know that there were other nationalistic movements occurring across Europe at the same time. In the Austrian Empire, nationalist disputers led the empire to being divided into two states. In Russia, the policy of Russification weakened the empire and eventually led to its fall. Now, Russification is the policy of forcing Russian culture on all ethnic groups in the Russian Empire. And finally, the Ottoman Empire gave equal rights to all groups, which resulted in tensions between two different groups, or between just different groups in general, such as the Christians not wanting to be ruled by Muslims. There also was a genocide that occurred in the Ottoman Empire. The Armenians, who were predominantly Christian, were massacred and deported out of the empire. There had been about 2 million Armenians, and by the end, it was estimated that about 1.5 million Armenians had been killed. This is considered a genocide, although present-day Turkey does not acknowledge this at all. Again, this tension led to the fall of the empire. Now, these tensions that occurred are not the sole reasons why these empires fell, but they certainly contributed to them, okay? All right, so that wraps up Unit 7. This is our last video. Make sure you have all of your video checks taken care of before test day, and I will see you next time.